Hello everybody, my name is MechaWill and welcome to my top 10 list for 2015. Now a lot of people like to say that 2015 was a pretty sparse year for gaming. I'd like to entirely disagree with that. I think 2015 was an awesome year for gaming. I think there was a lot of smaller titles that were out there that people may have missed, and if you did, then hopefully my list can kind of show you guys what I think the best games of 2015 were. Now if you disagree with me, that's totally fine. I'd love for you to go down in the comments section and show me your own 2015 list. If you do agree with me, then that's very cool. Well, I'd love to see you go ahead and discuss in the comments below with the other people there. Throw me a like and subscribe if you like what you see and help my channel out a little bit. And that's pretty much all I've got to say. Let's get this thing rolling. We're going to start from the bottom of the list. So let's go ahead and start with my number 10. Everybody's Gone to the Rapture.
While Everybody's Gone to the Rapture hasn't made a huge wave, the Chinese Room built a beautiful story-based game that followed in the footsteps of phenomenal titles like The Vanishing of Ethan Carter and Dear Esther. And it's definitely worth the playthrough if you're a story-based gamer. If you're not a story-based gamer, you're going to run into my main flaw with the game, which is that it was just too slow-paced for people to really get involved in a timely manner. That aside, you can find in this game some beautiful visuals and some beautiful storytelling and actually some very compelling gameplay that will make you really get involved in the story and actually try and figure out what has happened to everybody in this place. So you can also see a beautiful technique that we call photogrammetry. Now this was used in this year's Star Wars Battlefront. It was also used in The Vanishing of Ethan Carter. And basically what it does is produce some very beautiful visuals. So if you're looking for this game for a nice peaceful walkthrough that has some very beautiful visuals, I highly recommend picking up this game for that as well. But it also has a very well written story, so don't write it off as just a game that's pretty but has no substance.
Next up is number 9, a lesser known game but a beautiful title, Titan Souls.
Next up we have Titan Souls, an often overlooked gem and in my personal opinion, best played on the PlayStation Vita. Acid Nerve and Devolver Digital gave us a beautifully designed game that takes clear direction from games like Dark Souls and Shadow of the Colossus. Taking direction from some of the best games of all time is clearly not a bad idea, but it's more than just a copy. Titan Souls offers everything a game needs to grab my attention. It has a well-composed soundtrack, it has a great art style, and has a very honest direction and a firm identity. This game is no more and no less than what it is, and it is well worth the playthrough if you think you're skilled enough to take on bosses and levels with only a single arrow and a will to survive. Titan Souls also offers one of the best art designs I've seen in an independent title. It takes a lot of cues from Shadow of the Colossus and Ico, but these are games that I highly recommend that it takes cues from, and it did it beautifully. It creates a really great ambiance when you have a character that has a single arrow and is taking down all of these giant beasts that can also kill him in one hit, and it has that beautiful sorrowful music to back it up. It gives you a feeling like you're being alone, and this art style really gives way to that kind of feeling. Titan Souls is available on most platforms, and I highly recommend you pick up this superb title.
My number 8 may spark some discussion, but let's go ahead and get that discussion rolling. The Elder Scrolls Online.
The Elder Scrolls Online Tamriel Unlimited was in development for over 7 years and is perhaps one of the most controversial MMORPGs to come out. ZeniMax Online and Bethesda Studios' Elder Scrolls Online has delivered everything a gamer needs to get into this series. After picking it up and giving it a shot, after last year's scathing PC reviews, and this year's generally great console reviews, I discovered that every criticism I had heard levied at the game was gone. And in its place was not only a great MMO, but a fantastic RPG on its own. While not without its flaws, it is more than deserving of a purchase and a playthrough, and Elder Scrolls fans will not be disappointed at the massive amount of lore, content, and exploration that this game provides. Set across the entire continent of Tamriel, this game is massive and engaging, and absolutely filled to the brim with fully voiced NPCs and quests. On a further note, the game has been receiving fantastic, consistent support from the developers, and as great DLCs and patches roll out, this game gets better all the time. There are indeed a million reasons to play Elder Scrolls Online.
That indie game that we've all been waiting for. Number 7, Axiom Verge.
Axiom Verge was another underappreciated title of this year, and it's long awaiting a release on handhelds. Axiom Verge is the Metroidvania title that you've all been waiting for. The most impressive part? From the art to the programming to the music and the story, this entire 10 to 12 hour game was created by one man named Thomas Happ as a side project that grew into something more. Now this game boasts a wide variety of power-ups, guns, abilities, and secrets that can keep you involved for way more than the promised game length, and it's housed in a beautiful environment and style reminiscent of the classic 8-bit and 16-bit games that we used to know and love. Go out and give this game some love.
One of the all-time most expansive games for 2015, and one of my personal favorites. Number 6, The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt.
What can I say about The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt that hasn't already been said? Certainly deserving high praise is CD Projekt Red's high fantasy Witcher installment that is perhaps one of the only games of this year to deliver on all of its promises of content, length, graphics, and worthy DLC. This game and developer deserves more praise than I can possibly give, and while not without its flaws, it is well worth the time and money investment in playing through. It is a must-have title for your console or PC, and it welcomes all newcomers to the Witcher series as we follow the next tale of Geralt of Riviera and engage in the massive open RPG that you've always wanted.
We waited a long time for this game, and the wait was worth every second. Number 5, Fallout 4.
The big one on this list, and most likely what many people hold as their top game of this year, this game has certainly earned all of the praise that it's garnered. Bethesda Studios hits another home run in their never-ending open-world RPG rotation with Fallout 4. With a huge amount of content, customization, new features, and compelling gameplay, well, what am I saying? There's no way not a single person watching this video has not heard of Fallout. Dear to many gamers' hearts and well built up with the success of Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, which are both must-play titles, Bethesda shows yet again that they have a grasp on what makes games special. This studio has a clear respect for the series, and while they made us wait for this installment, I'm very glad that they did, because it shows that they take their time and their care with this series, very similar to Rockstar's GTA series. While a lot of gamers are getting worn out on the whole open sandbox world thing, leave a little room in your heart to squeeze one more in, because in RPGs and open world, this game is king.
Surprisingly in-depth and the sleeper hit of the year. Number 4, Until Dawn.
Many of you may be wondering why this game, as I'm mostly an RPG player, is placed above Fallout 4 for me. You'd be well to wonder, but most of those that have played understand why supermassive sleeper hit of the summer Until Dawn has had critical levels of success. Featuring a system where your choices matter to the lives or deaths of all 8 characters that you control, and a compelling story with genuine horror, this is one of the only games of this year that has made me start up a new playthrough immediately after playing it. With sandbox RPGs like The Witcher and Fallout, you gain an amazing experience, but there's really something to be said about having a great story-driven horror experience that isn't 500 hours long, but handcrafted just right. Whether a horror fan or not, I guarantee you will have fun with this Sony exclusive title, especially if you're playing with friends. This game would not have made it this far up my list if it didn't host a good amount of content in collectibles, mysteries, premonition totems, and other really cool features to keep any kind of player entertained throughout this game. This is a Sony exclusive title, but I highly recommend if you have a PlayStation 4 that you pick up Until Dawn and play it through, and then play it through again.
To keep out strangers!
Up next, we hit our final 3. And the next one was a little game that captured everybody's hearts and blew us all away. Number 3, Rocket League.
Rocket League. Rocket League took us all by surprise, and then by storm. If you as a gamer haven't heard of the independent project by Psyonix Studios, then you have been living under a rock. With a simple premise, great physics, and never-ending support to keep the game interesting from developers, you will not be bereft of fun at any moment with Rocket League. This hits my top 3 games of 2015 because I simply cannot put this game down. Any extra time when I'm not devoted to other tasks or playthroughs goes to playing a few rounds with Rocket League, or forming a team with my friends to take down the other side. Complete with a variety of game modes, and now modifications on those modes, and continually free updates and paid DLC from the developers, Psyonix is doing everything right to keep this game in our minds and in our hearts for a long time to come. Take note, Respawn and Turtle Rock.
Although its base game was not technically 2015, this game added so much more onto what it originally was. This deserves all of my praise and more than I can possibly give it. This is the runner-up to the best game of 2015, Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin.
Now I know what you're all going to say about Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin. It's just a remaster of an older 2014 title. How can it deserve a spot in this list? Well, let me tell you why it not only deserves a spot on this list, but my number 2 of my top 10 games of 2015. Although it is a remake of an older 2014 title, From Software never fails to deliver interesting, challenging, and engaging swathes of content that stand the true tests of time. The Souls series is a fan favorite choice for some of the best games of the past and current generation, and in my humble opinion, will stand up with Mario and Zelda as paragons of video game history. This game is much more than a remaster, including all 3 perfect 10 out of 10 DLCs of the Lost Crowns trilogy, now perfectly entwined with the game. New visuals, enemy placements, a new NPC, varied endings, a new boss fight, and a more intensive online system. This game deserves all the praise and hype that it's gotten. If you haven't played Scholar of the First Sin, it is a must-buy for any type of gamer that has the courage and the willpower to learn and discover the secrets and beauty of the Souls series.
You've all been waiting for it. You've most likely been expecting it. This is my #1 all-time favorite game for 2015. This is a game that you ought to go out and buy. This is a game that you ought to have in your home. This is a game that every gamer I think should play, as long as they have a PS4. #1 game of 2015 is Bloodborne.
With fast, gripping gameplay, a beautiful Victorian-era horror aesthetic, invigorating and investigative quest lines, a winning soundtrack, top-tier graphics, and a lasting online community, Sony Japan Studios and From Software's Bloodborne takes the all-time top game for 2015. Yeah! It's tough as nails, but rewards dedication and skill. And with a 10 out of 10 DLC release in The Old Hunters, Sony and From Software are showing the respect and care this game, and hopefully series, deserves. Stick around, because there's sure to be more of this from both of these fine developers. Good too, as Bloodborne is a masterclass in video game design. Everything that I stated about its runner-up Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin applies to this one. This game deserves all of the praise and hype that it's gotten. If you haven't tried it, it is a must-buy. This is a Sony exclusive title. I would recommend buying a PlayStation 4 merely for this game. This is how good Bloodborne is. Purchase a PS4, buy Bloodborne Collector's Edition with all the statues and get-ups and the whatnots, buy yourself a t-shirt, get yourself all of the gear and the merch, then you sit your ass down in a nice comfy chair and you spend 80 hours killing yourself over and over and over again. Does that sound fun to you? No? Well, it should, because this game offers all of the most intense gameplay that you've ever felt in your life. It's very quick, it is very intensive, it has a lot of different combinations to it that make you really think and strategize about the way that you play this game. This game is unique for everybody. You can have your own different sets of ways to go, you create your own character, you create your own path through the world, which is wonderfully interlocked within each other, and it's a very long game if you're looking for a nice amount of content with a good amount of story and a good amount of investigative quest lines and work that I discussed earlier, and all of these kinds of things all bundle up to make this the simply best title of 2015. This stands its own with the rest of the Souls series, Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, as being some of the best games of all time. If you don't think so, like I said, buy yourself a PlayStation 4, sit your ass down in a nice comfy chair, and you let me know whether or not Bloodborne has changed your experience of the way that games should be made, and whether this dedication and this amount of graphics, sound design, art design, NPC, voicings, everything that's been put into this game, why you shouldn't expect that from every other game in this generation.
So a lot of you may be surprised that a couple of games didn't make my list. There's a couple of reasons why, but the main one being that I want this list to be an entirely honest list that is only valid games that I've played in depth myself for the year of 2015. Now, some of these games may include Metal Gear Solid 5: The Phantom Pain, Rise of the Tomb Raider, or Helldivers, and these games probably deserved to be on my list in some form or another, but unfortunately I actually haven't gotten around to playing either of these titles. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys were only getting games that I actually personally recommend that you pick up and you go ahead and give a shot. Now that we've gotten past that part, I'd like to throw a couple of games out there that were not on the list but I think deserve to be mentioned as honorable mentions. So this is my honorable mentions section. Let's go ahead and start off with the first one. The reason this one didn't make the list was because it was a game that was actually released in 2014 and therefore it didn't feel fair for me to put that in the list. But this game had a console release in 2015 for the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation Vita, and this is one of my all-time favorite games, so no doubt deserves to be mentioned at least in this section. My #1 honorable mention is Shovel Knight.
Shovel Knight was a 2014 game that released on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation Vita in 2015 and is now one of my all-time favorite games in that short of a time span. It's got phenomenal gameplay, it's got great little 8-bit retro aesthetics, and a phenomenal soundtrack. I recommend you go check out Jake Kaufman's original soundtrack for Shovel Knight, and beyond that, I recommend you go play the game because it's super fun. Best played, probably would say on a handheld, but honestly, if you play it on your PlayStation 4, on your PC, or on your Wii, or on all of the consoles that it's out on, then that's what I would recommend doing because it's worth the playthrough.
My next honorable mention is a title that was released long before 2015, but in subsequent iterations has been remastered and redone and had an extra DLC added onto it that's made the game much different from what it originally was. Originally, this game started out as The Binding of Isaac. In 2014, the game changed to The Binding of Isaac Rebirth and made its console debut. And in 2015, hopefully we can see The Binding of Isaac Afterbirth on PlayStation 4 and other consoles worldwide, although it is already out and ready to go on the PC, so go give it a shot. The Binding of Isaac Rebirth.
The Binding of Isaac is one of those super special games. It takes a lot of direction from the original Legend of Zelda, but it's so much more than that. It has a ton of items, it's a really unique kind of playthrough, and it's a rogue type, which means that you pretty much never run out of different ways to play it. A lot of things are procedurally generated, including the levels, which means every run is going to be a different run for you. The really good thing that I like about this game is that it involves a huge amount of strategy. It has a ton of secrets, there's a lot of different bosses and levels, and it reminds me a lot about Dark Souls in that it's really difficult, but once you get past these really cool parts of the game and you get to other super cool parts of the game, you feel really accomplished. Binding of Isaac Rebirth is a must play.
And my final honorable mention. Now, while this game was a 2015 release, and it was one of my all-time favorite games of that year, it just didn't quite have the clout to match what these other games had, and therefore didn't make my 2015 list. But I still think that it deserves an honorable mention. So for my final one, I'd like to mention, just in passing, Dragon Ball Xenoverse.
Dragon Ball Xenoverse is the only AAA game to not make it in my top 10, but also still be an honorable mention. The reason for that is because it had a couple of flaws, specifically with its story and the length of the story and a couple of the different quest things that I didn't like. But beyond that, it is a phenomenal game, and especially for a Dragon Ball game. We've been waiting for a Dragon Ball Z game to come out for a very long time, and unfortunately, in the past basically decade, they've all been disappointing. This one is the one that really caught me and said, hey, this is the game. It's got the gameplay, it's got the sound design, it's got the character roster, it's got the ability to make your own character, the RPG elements you've been looking for, pretty much everything I needed in the game. The only thing that held it back was just a couple of flaws that stopped it from being on my top 10 list, but it is definitely worth a buy. Go check out Dragon Ball Xenoverse.
That about wraps up my 2015 top 10 gaming list. Now, if that didn't convince you that there were some cool titles in 2015, then hopefully you can go out and play some of those titles. Come back to me and tell me what you think. Now, if you have any more discussions or any more questions or comments or concerns, please throw those down in the comment section below, and I'll get to them. I appreciate all the support that you've given me, and I appreciate you guys making it through this video. If you do want to support me just a little bit more, it would very much help my channel for you guys to throw me a subscribe or throw me a like. That is, of course, only if you like the content that you see, and the subscribes if you want to see some more of it. So anyway, it's good to see you guys. My name is MechaWill, and thank you for all stopping by. I hope you guys come back later on, and I hope that I can see you guys again. Thank you.